Fantastic. So thank you so much, Lorna. I feel like your talk is just such a perfect way to kick off our day of speakers, because as many of the people here and of all of the Bay Area book artist members, sometimes it's easy to think that everyone knows what an artist book is, and you've shown us that it's so much more complex, and I really appreciate beginning our day this way. So please, anyone who has a question, you're welcome to put it in the chat, or you can unmute your mic, and Karen and I are going to be monitoring the chat and hoping to help facilitate a great Q&A.
Any questions? I had one. When you brought up the Delaney book, there's been a recent sort of, if you want to call it republishing, where they did a big exhibit of that book with many different sort of binders and artists sort of interpreting that. Mm-hmm. How do you see that sort of fitting into the overall?
Well, I guess how wonderfully influential artist books can be. And that one is from 120 years ago, almost. Yeah, I don't know, something about the Delaney's painting really, really strikes me, and it's my favorite kind of, all that color is so wonderful. Now I'm really pleased to know that Delaney is having a resurgence. Was that in San Francisco?
I don't know if it was done sort of with, it was artists all over the country. So I think somebody did a letter, was it a letterpress? And then they did the covers.
We actually have a copy of a republished version of that poster and wrapper done by a young artist, and it's all in this brilliant colors, because the ones I have seen are kind of faded, but this one is done in brilliant color that apparently is like the original. So yeah, there is this resurgence.
So Virginia had a question. How does Stanford find their artist books?
Ooh. And Ben later on might be better able to answer that. They have relationships with book artists. They have relationships with the publishers of artist books. They go to things like Codex book fairs and see them that way. And publishers would introduce different artist books to the selecting librarians. I'm not one of those, but yeah.
Great, and I'll read our next one. We have a question from Gigi and Ralph. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped Insia. First, a question from Insia. What are your current favorites, Lorna, and or where do you see the cutting edge now in 2020?
Wow, a lot of protest art, I think. I mean, you guys would know, I'm preaching to the choir here. You are the artists. You know what you're producing, but I think a lot of protest or, activist books. I don't really know. The last time I was at Codex was 2 years ago, and so I haven't seen new things since we've all been locked down. But yeah, you are the producers, so whatever you're working on is the cutting edge.
How did Gigi and Ralph have a question? How did you first get interested in this topic?
Well, in my graduate work, I took a course called The Material Book, taught by a medievalist at Stanford, Elaine Treharne. And she is a medievalist, brought in medieval books and manuscripts, and then she taught all the way through up to artist books. And she's really fascinated with artist books, so it was very catching. I think just that mixture of art and book is what's not to love. Those two things. So that's how, from there, that's how I decided on my thesis topic. And I had a hard time finding artist books at Stanford because of well, it has many problems, but cataloging, and we hide them behind walls, and so it's hard to find.
That's a great question. And Ben added in the chat, Benjamin Alberton, our rare book curator at Stanford, that Lorna's describing our acquisition process well. Curators build relationships with publishers, artists, and collectors. And I think a few years ago, we had Ann Myers, who's a rare book cataloger, speaking, and she talked about how important the descriptive metadata for the books is, and being able to find these in the collection. Could you say just a couple sentences on that? I know it's kind of mysterious.
This is something I cover in my thesis, but it's true now. In the recent years, the cataloging has become wonderful, and because also you can search by keyword, and so if the catalogers put all the descriptive stuff from the publisher or from the artist himself, herself, then you can find things. Now, the older books that have been in the catalog for a long time, they don't have that rich depth of metadata, so it's harder to find that way. It's mostly about the difficulty of describing, and also the difficulty of describing. There was an attempt at one point to have a category for, well, there is actually subject headings for artist books, but you have to be careful because you can also find books about artist books. So then you have to sift through and find the objects themselves. So yeah, it's an ongoing project, let's say.
Let's see. I guess, well, Rebecca had a comment. She said, she talked about defining an artist book is always a challenge. I usually say that an artist book is a book in which the structure is as important as the content. And sometimes the structure is the content. Mm-hmm. This is not a complete definition, but gives a sense of what they are, and also provokes some people to bristle. That structure I guess also can be content.
Yeah, there's so many things, it's hard to define. That was part of my thesis too. How do you define it? And everybody's still talking about it.
Yep.
I think, and we have a question from Virginia for you, which is approximately how many artist books would you say that Stanford holds, a ballpark?
From the head of special collections told me there are about 6,000 of them, but some have not even been cataloged yet. So yeah, I was like, oh, show me, but I haven't been able to see them all. So, but yeah, did I say 6,000? It's a big number. It's a big number that are not found, but you can probably find about 3,000 in the catalog, I think.
Fantastic. And Ben just threw in a link for the cataloged artist books in special collections that have been cataloged as, with the caveats that Lorna explained.
Yeah.
Where are they, at the Green Library, or are they at your library?
They're both at Bose Art Library, and Green in special collections has a huge collection. So yeah, there are two places, which is kind of cool. I think music might have a couple, education might have a couple, but mostly those where the big collections are.
So you get a workout when you go researching.
Yeah, it's
so
fun.
Lorna, I know that you at Bose Art and Architecture Library have had quite a few small exhibits where you bring out some of the works. How often do you display work, and what kind of exhibit programs do you have there that people might be able to at some point visit in person?
Yes. Yeah. It's been so long. we have four exhibition cases, and maybe 3 or 4 shows a year. It just, it's time consuming, and it's mostly the head librarian, Vanessa, would be organizing, but people can propose themes or collections that they want to to show. But yeah, it'd be nice once we're back normal.
So has this sort of, the past 9 months sort of changed either the urgency or the perspective on digitization and accessibility?
Oh, that's a question for Astrid more than me, or for Ben. We don't do any digitizing in Bose. We do have a really nice scanner, but we don't digitize. Anything that we would digitize, we would send to Astrid's team.
Yeah, like Lorna was saying, sorry about that, a little bit of internet lag on my end. But yeah, like Lorna was saying, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm part of the digitization team at Stanford, which is how I have the pleasure of knowing Lorna. And we do take high resolution images of materials for access. Those are, there's a lot of difference between the way that you would go about taking pictures of an object as sort of an art object and the way that you capture the contents of the material for access online, if you picture like the flipbook viewers that you're familiar with seeing. So I think that that's an area that could benefit from more input from artists like BABA members and people who have the sort of museum aesthetic outlook, because sometimes you'll see the objects online that are we'll hear more about this when Ben is talking later, but say a medieval codex that scholars are able to access, it gets this kind of squished and flat look as opposed to the dynamic shapes that we're used to seeing in artist books when we're looking at them in person. So that's a big topic, and I think showing images of work itself is a huge conversation that can benefit from constant re-exploration.
Okay, so one comment was, it would be wonderful if the books were viewable as an exhibit.
Well, when we go back, maybe I'll put those exact books in an exhibition.
That would
be fantastic.
Yeah.
And we have a comment from Ben too. There will be several exhibits in Green Library starting in late 2021 that have artist books as a primary component. And the schedule is a little bit hazy due to COVID, but Roberto Trujillo, the head of special collections, and Professor Elaine Traharn both have exhibits booked. Yes, and there's possibilities for exhibits of non-Stanford materials. Any other
questions?
So Lorna, how long have you been a librarian? It was what you said.
I've been 28 years. I've been a librarian, here and there, different places. And I'm not. I'm working on other things now, and journals, and actually I do process the LOCs, what we call our special collections at the art library. So I get to see a lot of the artist books when they first come.
Oh, fun.
Then they order boxes to put them in. Then we hide them.
Like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
And how did you first come to this career path? Was it something that you kind of pursued or evolving?
I did my undergraduate degree in French and Italian, and I lived in Italy for many years. And so when I came back, I didn't know how to type. I didn't have any skills. So I got a job at Green Library because they were looking for people with knowledge of Western European languages. So, and I was just a young person. So I started working at Green, and that got me to go to library school. So that, yeah. And I think it's, for a lot of us, it's the love of books, or the love of finding things, or the love of information. It's what makes us go in that direction.
Yeah. What's the best way to find out about these exhibits that happen in the library system at Stanford?
Probably the libraries.stanford.edu, the main Stanford Library's page, I think has one of their main boxes as events. Ben might be able to tell you better than that.
Okay.
But that, I think, would be a good way. Or ask Astrid.
Yeah, I try to let all the BABA members know, but definitely look at the Stanford website so you can find a list or check the events regularly. Yeah. And I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Oh, Ben said we can, Ben said that he can send something to a central email for BABA.
Perfect.
So our members can find out about events.
See, isn't he a great resource?
Isn't he?
Well, Lorna, I can't thank you enough for joining us today, taking time out of your Sunday, and for preparing the wonderful video for us too. It's a first that we're able.
Weird to watch yourself.
Yeah, we've had a lot of requests to record in the past, but it's a little more difficult when we're in a physical setting. So in one way, this is just fantastic to be able to have a lasting resource. And I invite everyone to have a look around the virtual jam at the gallery spaces, at the marketplace, and just enjoy the resources that we've put up there. Yeah, the event is just to share our love of book arts and hopefully spark some creativity for everyone here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And we will be back at 12:30 with Jamila, who's going to be showing eco dyeing, and she is going to do her talk live, which she'll be having the Q&A happening throughout her demonstration. So please hop back on, have some lunch, enjoy a gap in your day, and then come back at 12:30. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming. It feels funny saying that.
It does. And thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
I couldn't do it without you. This is great. I'm so happy that we have so many people.
Yeah.